Okay, good evening, everybody. David Paul with you here in the KHOU 11 Weather Center in Houston, Texas. This is your Thursday evening Atlantic Tropical Update. There are a couple of spots out there that we're watching, but really the only one that is going to get our full attention tonight is going to be Tropical Storm Sam. That one is forecast to become a major hurricane, perhaps as early as tomorrow night, certainly as we go into the weekend and Saturday. So where are we? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 named storms now, with Sam now becoming a tropical storm earlier today. It is likely that Sam is going to become a major hurricane. So Ida, Larry, Grace, and then most likely we're going to add Sam to that major hurricane list. So where does that put us? 18 named storms. So an average year is at 14. So we're at 18 now. 7 is a normal number of hurricanes. We've had 6. We're going to go to 7 with this one. So we'll go to 7 on the chart, and then we're going to get this into a major category hurricane, I think at least Cat 3. So I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun here and put us at 4 for the number of major hurricanes we've had so far this year compared to the average. You know, here we are. We still have about 40% of the season left to go. We're well ahead on named storms, and so we're going to have an above average season, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere near last year with 30 named storms, 13 hurricanes, 6 majors. Well, you know, with Sam, we'll have 4 majors and still 40% of the season to go. So we'll see where we end up. Here's the big map. First of all, nothing in the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, nothing forecast to develop here. That's great news. You get a storm here this time of the year, they most always get yanked northward toward the continental U.S. in some way, shape, or form. So we've got a little swirl east of Bermuda, 10% chance of development. Models are not picking up on this. It's very a diffuse swirl right now. This is a low-level swirl, but that's it. Hurricane Center's putting a 50-50 chance for development on that. This is North Atlantic. I looked at the models. It's not going to impact anybody up here with any significance. So at the moment, those two are on the back burner. Sam is on the front burner because it looks like it may impact in some manner the Virgin Islands, Greater Lesser Antilles, maybe Puerto Rico as well. So we're watching Sam very carefully. And tonight, Sam is continuing to get better organized. Currently winds at 60 miles an hour, sustained. 74 would make it a Cat 1 hurricane, so we're getting close. Moving west at 16. So it's moving to the west fairly quickly. Pressure at last check 1,000 millibars. This is the 4 p.m. advisory. You get a full advisory at 10 o'clock tonight. I expect that pressure is going to drop. But that forward speed is interesting. So west at 16. So that means it's moving along pretty quickly, but it's moving along with the environmental winds. So as we look at the visible satellite, this is a 12-hour loop. And so we start midday. We're way out here in the open Atlantic. So we go into nighttime. We lose the visible sat. But it's worth looking at because it's a very symmetrical, very well-formed tropical storm. This is an unsheared storm. What you don't see is a low-level swirl way out here and then all the convection displaced off to the east or north or west of the storm. You see it all in one tightly formed little ball. That's a storm that's getting better organized in a hurry. So let's take a closer look at what's going on with the wind shear. So there's your surface location of the storm. You can see the infrared satellite on water vapor. And then these are the wind streamlines up at 250 millibars. So we're talking about 35,000 feet. And although we do have winds coming out of the west, coming across the storm, remember the storm is moving to the west. So it's moving along with the stream. And so the result is that you've got a system that's unsheared, even though there are upper level winds moving east to west across the storm's moving right along with that flow. So it's a very unsheared environment right now. That means the storm can become vertically stacked. That means it can intensify. And looking out ahead of the storm, the environment that it's going to be moving into, boy, that is an unsheared beauty right there. And that's one way to look at it. It just means that this storm is going to be in an atmosphere where it's going to be very conducive for rapid intensification. That's why we think this is going to go at least Cat 3 and be our 4th major hurricane of the season as we head through the weekend. What does a sheared environment look like on this map? This is your sheared environment. Very strong winds west to east. You get a storm up in that type of flow and it will just tilt over and the head will be chopped off and it will quickly be torn apart. But this environment, that is very conducive to vertically stacked tropical development. At the surface, there's plenty of energy. So these are current sea surface temperatures out here. There's San Juan, Puerto Rico. Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Here are the Lesser Antilles Islands, Virgin Islands, Greater and Lesser Antilles in here. And so as the storm moves to the west-northwest, it's going to be moving over sea surface temps that are in the mid-80s. That is plenty of energy. So we've got plenty of fuel for this heat engine, which is what these hurricanes, tropical systems are. They're heat engines. There's also a relatively deep heat content, especially once it gets a little closer to the islands of the Caribbean. This deeper ocean heat content, the brighter colors, the yellows and the oranges, just means that that 84-degree surface temperature extends down quite a ways below the surface. When these storms move over the surface of the ocean, especially the stronger ones, they tend to churn the water up and they upwell. So if there's cooler water right underneath, that 84-degree surface skin temperature can be disrupted and it can bring up cooler water and that can weaken the system. But this tells us that there's plenty of warm water several meters down, so this should not be any type of inhibitor to its intensification. There's plenty of warm water, plenty of energy for the storm to feed off of. This is a superimposition of the spaghetti plots. I've also got all the arms of the GFS in here, and then the little shaded outline here, that is the forecast track from the Hurricane Center all together. And there's still a great deal of uncertainty here. So just looking at all the spaghetti plots, you've got 500 miles of uncertainty in exactly where that center is going to go. So it's not set in stone by any means as to where this thing is going to end up. But for everybody here, from Haiti, Dominican Republic to Puerto Rico to the islands, this is one you want to be paying very close attention to, as it looks like it's going to be a powerful storm, and it looks like it either hits or makes a close call with you guys as we head into next week. So here we are going out into Tuesday of next week. Forecast from the Hurricane Center. It very quickly takes it to Cat 1 tomorrow. Tomorrow night, Cat 3 as we get into the weekend, and then keeps it Cat 3 going into the first couple of days of next week. Quite often the intensity forecast, the initial ones on these early cones are a little low, so it wouldn't surprise me if it was even stronger than Cat 3, forecasting sustained winds of 125 miles an hour in that system. The question is, will it impact the islands and people here? This cone is a little encouraging. They do curve it, in the center of the cone at least stays well away from the islands. But remember, statistically, when you see a forecast cone from the Hurricane Center, it's just as likely, statistically, that the center will be on the left edge or the right edge of the cone. So even though we do try to make a best guess down the middle, statistically, it could be on the left edge or the right edge of that cone and still be an accurate forecast. Thus the term cone of uncertainty. So let's look at the GFS and the Euro, and this is interesting. So they are in very tight agreement, the American and the European model, as we head forward out the next several days, into Tuesday, into Wednesday of next week. Very close in agreement. Europeans on a little bit more southern track, American model a little bit further north. And you see how close this is getting to the islands. At the very least, this sends in a tremendous amount of wave activity. So then we go forward in time, and the models do diverge a little bit more. The European model, much closer to the island chain. The American model, quite a ways away from the island chain. That's a much better outcome, the American model. This European model makes me very nervous for San Juan and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, heading into the middle of next week. I think the best takeaway from this is that there's still a large amount of uncertainty into exactly where this hurricane is going to go, but it looks likely that it is going to be a very intense tropical cyclone, Cat 3 or higher. So it's a dangerous storm wherever it ends up going. After that, where is it going to end up? So let's say that it misses the islands and continues to the west-northwest. We're in fall now, and as we've been talking about, we get these troughs more and more frequently as we head into fall, troughs at the upper levels. This is the wind flow at 34,000 feet, and this is next Thursday. This is a week out from today. So with this type of a trough, even though the core is up here across the central Atlantic, it does dip down all the way into the Bahamas and then continues that trough. So that trough does influence all the way down to Cuba. This type of pattern should encourage a northward turn. Now, as we head into Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, that trough is here. It's still, several hundred miles from the center of that storm. So that's the big question mark. How early will Sam feel, how soon will it feel that upper level flow and feel that pull to the north? This type of setup could allow it to take that more southerly track closer to the islands, or hopefully it would stay further away from the islands, get caught up in that flow and be pulled northward, and that would be hopefully get rid of most of the danger from Sam. Now, Bermuda, you're sitting right here, so Bermuda as well, you need to be paying very close attention to this because it's very uncertain to exactly when that turn is going to happen and to what degree. But Bermuda, you may have to deal with Sam as we head into the middle and latter part of next week, so plenty of time to watch it right now. We push this forward in time, we go into October 1st, we're going way out now, October 2nd, and that trough just sits here. So the trough's not going to lift out. And this particular model run suggests, see this little deformation right in here? That would be whatever is left of Sam at that point. There's Bermuda right there. So this could end up making a very close call to Bermuda. And after that, this upper level winds do kink back and bend back on themselves. That trough becomes negatively tilted. So, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, it may end up bringing you impacts as we head into the 3rd, 4th, 5th of October. That's going way out in the long range, but that's the way it looks right now. So folks in the island chains of the Caribbean, the Eastern Islands, paying very close attention to this. Questions, comments, hit me up on social, leave a comment down here. We'll have another update on Friday on Sam. We'll see you then.